because again, I mean, I just purchased a home, my very first home, just 3 years ago. I did not pay cash. So,
Spoiler alert.
you know, Dave Ramsey, I'm sorry, you would be disappointed.
Please, Dave. Basically, what are some financial education tools that you found helpful or would you recommend?
Mhm.
And then also, how do you find those tools that align with where you're at?
And so I guess, are you asking from my perspective of where I am at, or the perspective of a viewer who is maybe at the beginning stages of financial independence?
Either one.
Okay.
Wherever you
Well,
want to take it.
you know, I would say just any kind of financial independence book. The reason why I'm saying that is I don't know what knowledge actually helped me. I just know that I have read lots of different books and taken lots of different courses, and it has become incorporated into my realm of knowledge,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. And I don't know what among that was the valuable thing versus not.
Or like the tipping point.
Right. And so now, as well, I wouldn't say that I'm the ideal,
Sure.
because again, I mean, I just purchased a home, my very first home, just 3 years ago. I did not pay cash. So,
Spoiler alert.
you know, Dave Ramsey, I'm sorry, you would be disappointed.
Please, Dave.
And you know, I just, again, in the last year is when I paid off a vehicle, and for the very first time in my whole life, I'm 42 now, I have now started to save money for the next car, and that's the first time I've ever done that. So I'm not the ideal. It is definitely just and now I will say this, for me the process is always just repetition. So I don't mind reading Rich Dad Poor Dad multiple times, or Extreme Ownership multiple times, or Dave Ramsey's Entree Leadership multiple times, etc. I just keep reading.
I love it.
Yeah.
One of the things that you've taught me in my time
Yeah.
here is the idea that you can read these books, and this is why I kept Extreme Ownership on the table. Just as valuable as, let's say, the financial strategies in Rich Dad Poor Dad is the mindset.
Right.
Do you want to talk more about that?
Sure. I mean, when you're thinking about your life, and this is something that happened to me earlier on in life, I was married at the time, that I remember this, at least this specific story. I had been in a position of junior management, I'll say. It was at school, in college, and so it wasn't like a full-time employee who was a manager. I was a student and among a student team of managers. So we were called student managers. And we're assistants to the assistants to the manager.
Yeah.
Is really what it was, I think. But my wife also worked there with me. And she was going to be quitting, and because she was pregnant, having a baby, and I applied for her position, and you know, both of us look at it and think I was probably the most qualified person. And the feedback that they did not give me the job. The feedback that they gave us was that they didn't want me to be hired, and because they anticipated that I would very quickly thereafter apply for a adult manager, you know, a full-time manager position. They didn't want to train for that position and then have to train again and hire again. So they wanted someone who would just go to that position. And I kind of felt shafted a little bit, obviously. And at that time, you know, there was some bitterness there. But what I've learned since then and adapted and grown from is that it doesn't matter as well. Like, if you know, you might not get a promotion when you're applying, you might be the most qualified, And you can take ownership of that, as in, I don't mean ownership of the rejection, but ownership of the situation that you're in. And so you can just say, well, fine, I can still do this, and I can still do this, and I can make better relationships to try to actually go for the full-time job next, instead of going the in-between route, maybe, and like actually do what they were thinking might happen. You don't have to, you're never stuck in a position, is basically what I've learned. And there's always opportunity. Every kind of challenge brings opportunity. And so I think that's the biggest thing that's helped me financially, is because I've never let it make me become bitter and focus on how everybody's out to get me and I've been rejected. And it's not the only time I've been rejected. That's just one story of many. So
Tune in next time.
Exactly. We'll get to all of them eventually. So stay tuned. But yeah, it's you can always do something.
Okay. That reminds me, I was watching Y Combinator
Yeah.
stuff. The startup school maybe.
Yeah, startup school.
The
It's on
old
YouTube.
one, 2017. They have a new one, which I'm excited to watch.
Yeah, I've only watched the old one.
Yeah, much more produced, the videos for this new one. Anyway, Sam basically said the most successful CEOs, the most successful entrepreneurs that he's worked with are the people who say, like, I never give up, I always work it out, I always, this mindset of like, I'm not going to feel bad for myself in this situation, maybe for a minute, but I've got to make something out of this situation. So
Yeah.
just reminded me of that.
Yep. It's not a thing that I have a structure in my mind of like, oh man, if this is where you are, this is what you got to do. And if this is where you are, then this is what you got to do. It's really, there are so many paths. You just got to keep working on it.
Yeah.
And I guess there are probably some pitfalls that I would recommend. And with all the things that you can do, there are certain things that you don't want to do, or certain things that are really key. Like if you don't figure out how to do this, you might never make it to financial independence. And that is, I think allocating a percentage of your income to investments is key, is very important. So obviously if you have no money, you can't do that yet. Well, Robert Kiyosaki would say you could do that. So don't have rent, live in your car. Okay, I was not willing to do that.
Yep.
Not with my wife and kids. So it's up to you, obviously. But if you improve your skills so that you get a better job, and then you have more money, I think the first inclination for people is to increase their spending. And that's how I have lived. And that's why I was telling you that for the first time in my life, I have started saving for the next car. It's because I never learned to allocate investment money ahead of time. Not never, I mean, I started doing that about 4 or 5 years ago. But that is the key, is to find a way to make more money and allocate a percentage of that to investments instead of increasing your standard of living first.
Yeah, that lifestyle creep.
Yep.
Robert Kiyosaki talks about pay yourself first.
Yeah, definitely. That's the idea.
Pay yourself for the investments, you'll figure out a way to get those bills paid, is kind of his philosophy, if I'm understanding it correctly.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that. And again, I mentioned my path was, instead of spending that time, because like, let's say I had done that. I had spent, $300, $500, put it towards some investment account. And then I didn't have money for food, or I didn't have money for rent. And I thought to myself, okay, well, how am I going to get that money? I think he would argue, well, you could get a part-time job. You could become a salesperson for something. You could join a multi-level marketing company. Like, so many options of what you could do. And since I read his book to now, I have almost always either been in my own company and not able to control my income because I just was not good at business, I guess. Yeah, so like, there you go. Or in school, or allocating my time to something else that I also valued.
Yeah.
And it has worked out a different way.
Yeah.
But I would say it is up to the viewer, the audience member. What you want most is the thing that you will choose to do.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to live in a house and not in a car, obviously you won't go live in a car. You won't make that sacrifice. But find out where you can make sacrifices, where you are willing to make sacrifices, and do those things. So if you invest first, you will then be in a position, in a hole in a sense,
mm-hmm.
where you have to figure something out, and so you'll be more productive.
Yeah, that's his argument is, right, like you have to eat, so
Mm-hmm.
it'll feet to the fire, is that the
Sure,
phrase?
something like that.
But I think what you're talking about, this idea that you can take strategies from different frameworks is why it's important to read or watch
Multiple things,
videos
exactly.
or listen to podcasts from multiple people, right? Like there's a lot from Dave Ramsey's framework that I agree with and that has been helpful. There's also stuff that I don't do. I have debt. I don't pursue my debt repayment with gazelle intensity.
Okay, does he say that?
Says, yeah, he does.
Okay.
He says you should step in a restaurant if you have debt.
Okay, yeah.
Those kinds of things. I be eating. You
Yep,
know what I mean?
yep.
I go to restaurants.
Yeah, me and my wife have a date every week.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
I mean, we take stuff from him. You read Rich Dad Poor Dad. He informs your entrepreneurial mindset. Like there are things that you can take from everybody, which is why it's important to take a look at all of the different frameworks and choose what works for
mm-hmm.
each individual person.
Yeah, I would encourage anybody watching, if you are not a student still, a young teenager, for example, or in a position where you can make huge sacrifices without significant change to your standard of living, I would start that right away, or teach your kids so that they at least have a head start.
Mm-hmm.
So I've tried to teach my kids, for example, the concept of Rich Dad Poor Dad. It doesn't like they ask, can I buy this? I'm like, yeah, just earn more money. Because what we've encouraged them to do is save a portion,
mm-hmm.
or like for them it will become investment. Anyway,
Yeah.
Earlier you start, the more those strategies are possible.
Yeah. Rule of 72, which
Yes.
is all about
Investment
how your
over time.
investment
Yeah.
multiplies. I want to take a second. I don't really have much to say about this other
Mm-hmm.
than people don't get rich by just saving.
Correct.
And I think that was a misconception I had for a long time, was that if I just put enough money away.
Yeah, I think there are some arguments, like I've read some books, I'm not sure if it's Millionaire Next Door that talks about this,
Mm-hmm.
but there are some people that have always put money into investments. They've just always done the match, or
Mm-hmm.
always just put a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of money away. And that kind of saving, which is not saving, it's investing in a way, is different.
Yeah. Millionaire Next Door, Chris Hogan.
I don't know who wrote it. I read it so long ago, it just popped into my mind right now.
Okay. I'll put whatever it is in the show notes.
Sweet.
I'll write
Show
it in the
notes.
Show notes. I read The Millionaire Teacher,
Okay.
and that really informed my understanding of investing.
Was it Chris Hogan?
No.
Okay. Cool.
We'll get there. So when we start talking about investing and investing strategies, we can talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've already touched on this a little bit, talking about figuring out your goals with money,
Mm-hmm.
getting your own priorities. I would say writing them down,
Mm-hmm.
and if you have someone you share your money with, talking to that person, and becoming zeroed in on whatever financial goals it is for you. So like, last year we wanted to make sure that we had money to set aside for our kids' college. So that was like one of our big goals.
Mm-hmm.
This year, no, I'm just kidding.
Just like, we spent it.
We spent it! We had a great party. No, this year it's a different goal. And so whatever the goal is, making sure that it's intentional, it's written out, you're reminding yourself of it. You can Google all of these strategies about like how to pursue your goals, but for me what's been the most important is writing them down as a regular reminder.
Okay.
So not just like writing it and posting it. I have a daily journaling practice, which is probably like a little overzealous for some people, but visiting that goal for me daily, maybe weekly, monthly, whatever, helps me sort of reset my mind frame.
Do you think for those people who put it on like their mirror, or something like that. Is that
Yeah, I
the
think.
same kind of idea that you're talking about?
Yeah, and as long as the trouble for me personally with posting it somewhere is that it sort of just becomes part of my environment, and I'm blind to it.
Yep.
But if you post it somewhere and you intentionally read it, like, okay, my goal is, then I think that can be really helpful.
Cool. The content in this video is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, investment, or legal advice. Investing in securities involves risk, including the potential loss of your entire investment. Always conduct your own research and consult with a licensed financial advisor or legal professional before making any investment decisions. The opinions expressed in this video are those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect the views of Ridge, Angel Funding, or VAS Portal. So I should be listening to oldies is what you're saying while I'm doing that.
Why?
Sweating to the oldies. Do you not know that?
No.
Okay, this is for all of you older folks, know exactly what I'm talking about, Sweating to the Oldies.
Yikes.
It is a workout video series. Oh. Megan fed in the morning. No, sorry, again.
Welcome. We're gonna let it go.
We have to stare up at this guy.